So when Dre came back the last time from being in St. Louis, he wasn't living with Robbie at the time. He came back and he said, Mom, he said, if anything ever happened to me, just know that Tim did it. What are you talking about? He said, well, just know Tim don't never do his own dirty work. But I got that fatal call from her about Dre. And I didn't want to answer the phone. You know, I just didn't want to answer the phone. And then she hung up and she called right back. And then that's when she was like, well, you know, the detectives was here. And already my heart is already slowing down, you know, and to the point where they wanted her to go down to the morgue to identify that was him. That was it. You know, it was like, it was so surreal. Everything was just rolling around. I'm just like, not my son. You know, not my son. Not my son.
So the plan with this is like what we're doing now. I just want it to be a conversation, and you know, I like for us to start at the beginning and kind of work through the timeline of Dre's life, who he was, the parts that the public didn't get to know about him. And my goal with this whole project is to pay tribute to Dre and highlight his life in a way that I haven't seen it done anywhere publicly. And there are a lot of people who are still very invested in Dre and his life, how he impacted, you know, all of us in his brief time on the screen. So I just want to basically create something that is a tribute to him and will be something you and your family, as well as the public, can, you know, look to for years to come, just to celebrate Dre and his life.
I'm not doing it for no fame or fortune, because you don't really hear about how this thing happened. It's not normally in the Black community. Andre didn't have buku money. All he had was himself and his personality. And that went further than anything possibly could be out there.
So with Andre's father, how did you guys meet?
I met Dre through some friends of mine, and we just hit off. And I mean, the short period of time we was together, it was just, he was my everything. He was everything that completed me.
So what did Andre Sr., like what name or names did he go by?
He went by Dre.
So Big Dre, and was it Big Dre and Lil Dre?
Big Dre and Little Dre.
Okay.
When Andre was a baby, we used to call him Man Man. And one day he came up to me, he said, Mom, I don't want to be called Man Man no more. Like, why, son? He said, 'Cause Man Man bad. I said, okay.
Oh.
We started calling him Dre.
And what's one of your fond, if you can remember back, what's one of your like most fond memories of Big Dre?
He was in the kitchen, he was cooking chicken, right? And he was telling me a story about his grandmother, and I think it was a thigh that he was cooking, and he was saying, she always said, make sure you get up into them thighs. You know, just comical, but he would say stuff like that, right? So when he's cooking, he would set the chicken up where they'd be like kind of like a teepee or something, so that the heat would get up in there. And so, you know, but a lot of times, like if I'd be asleep, he would get up, walk my oldest to school, or make sure he was ready to go to school. He was always doing things like that. He was I really That was the love. He's the love of my life. So yeah.
I saw that just from the video when it's just like your eyes just went up and it was like, oh wow. I
Yeah.
can feel it. It was emanating.
Yeah. I really love Dre. I
Wow.
love Big Dre. So
How was it, to your knowledge, how was his relationship with Miss Robbie at that time or just growing up?
he really didn't say, but I know he loved his mother.
Mm-hmm.
But I know she traveled a lot. So he was raised by his uncles and by his grandmother. He would call her and talk to her, and then whenever I got pregnant with little Dre, he would call his mom. I'm like, okay. He said, because my mama make sure she know the truth. Okay, because I guess in the past women claimed to be pregnant by him, and they wasn't pregnant by him.
Okay.
So when I talked to Robert on the phone, I just talked to her, and she's straight to the point. So you pregnant? Yes, ma'am. Uh, for long, and then I showed a sonogram picture. She said, oh, okay. And I give him back the phone. I guess that's what he needed to just make sure, because I guess he was tricked or trying to be tricked by so many different women.
Mm-hmm.
And mama knows. Mama gonna know if she's pregnant or not. And so I guess that's what he needed as confirmation that I was. And he was funny. Andre is a spit image of his dad. Look like him, act like him, talk like him, walk like him. Andre, he was just like his dad. Spit image. Matter of fact, after Andre was born, I was out, and the nurse was like, you have to name him. I said, okay, I'll name him. I don't know, something happened, and I sleep. I was out. When I woke up, they came in and said, well, here's Andre. I said, who named him? He said, I named him. Oh, okay. You are his father.
Right,
He
right.
named him Andre Montgomery Jr. So, and he was so proud, kind of like the Lion King. He was like lifting him up extra. Just,
I
I'm
love
telling you, Dre is spit image of his dad, spit image of him. He loved Dre. That's his only son. And I used to ask him, I said, well, how many kids do you want? He said, I just want one. He said, if I can get that one, he said, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with that one. So,
You got
yeah.
that one.
Mm-hmm. Spit image.
And do you know what his relationship was like with Tim? Because do you know the age difference?
18, maybe 18 years difference. I'm
So,
thinking, I'm not sure, but there was a big gap in between the ages.
so they didn't really grow up together at all.
No, no.
Okay. And what was Big Dre's personality like?
Like Dre, funny, silly. He always laughing, always, how can I explain? He was just, Andre was a spit image of his dad. I didn't know a lot of people in San Diego that if he was out there helping and doing things for, but people in the streets, they knew him.
Mm-hmm.
They knew him. They knew who he was. They knew that he had a big heart as well. He had told me that when he was little, when Robbie was traveling, she had bought him I think a bike, and he would go down to the hood, or to whatever, and he would come back with a raggedy bike. And he said Robbie was mad at him, and he was like, I don't want them kids calling me rich boy. So he fit in. He tried to fit in. He didn't let his mom's wealth, his mom's reputation make him be who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was amongst everybody else. He wanted to blend in. He didn't want to be the one to stand out. So he was giving too, just like Dre was.
It's funny because as soon as you were saying that, first thing I went to is the stories that all of you have told about Dre and how giving he was and would give the shirt off his back to somebody if he felt like they needed it more than he did. Like it's amazing that his father was just like that. So we know he has that personality trait. With Dre being the other running theme I heard from all his siblings and you is that protector. Was Big Dre, did he get that from Big Dre, that protective mode?
He did. I'm telling you, he was spit image of his dad. But they pictures side by side. He looked just like his dad. He walked like him. He held his hand like him. Only difference was he didn't talk like him, because Dre had that surgery, but
Mm-hmm.
Dre had his whole demeanor like his dad. He was just like his dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So we were supposed to be leaving California, coming back to Texas. And he said, go ahead and go. He said, I'll catch up with y'all. I said, okay. I went to Texas, and then I went to Missouri, and I was staying with my sister, because he's supposed to be coming to Missouri, and we was going to go and meet Robbie, meet everybody for the first time. Well, I got a phone call from Robbie, and she was all choked up, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And then Tim jumped on the phone and said, "Dre's dead," and I just floored. What do you mean Dre's dead? He said something about he got into a fight. We really don't know what happened. So I asked where was that, and this is all new to me. I called the homicide department, and I told them who I was. I told them I was Dre's wife, and they gave me the details of pretty much what happened. That he went over to, I guess, a associate that he knew, and somebody had stolen a ring that he had, and he was asking about the ring. Well, the guy's girlfriend came out swinging a bat, so Dre took the bat from her. He's like, what's going on? And then his brothers and his friend came out and they jumped him and they stabbed him. So when he left, he was running away from them, getting away from them, and he collapsed on the sidewalk. And they took him to Sinai Hospital, and he died there. So me wanting to make sure that he get closure, I kept calling the detectives. I called them like I did with Dre case. I kept calling, kept calling, and then they would only give me so much. But Robbie got most of the details. But this one detective, I forgot his name because it's been so many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He kept in touch with me. And so whenever I did call, he said they did convict all three of them. They went to prison. Two of them died in prison, and one of them died, I think, after he got out. So they all end up dying. Not saying that that's a good thing, but they all got sentenced. They all went to prison to serve for his murder. So I kept insisting, persisting on that as well, because I just can't sit and been undone. I just wasn't happy with the fact that nothing happened. So I just want to make sure that, again, justice was served and he got his justice as well. Did nobody go away free.
So how was Dre as a like infant toddler, his personality then, the stuff you started to see right away?
It didn't take him long to crawl. He was always advanced. He was born without a pharyngeal flap, I think, where, when we say our consonants in the back of our throat, there's a flap that he didn't have one. So when he talked like nasally, and he talked mostly with the vowels. I can't mimic him, but Asia can. This is, how a baby's starting to talk, and his baby talk, and nobody can understand but you, the family, can.
Yes.
So I'm gonna try to do the best I can. I really can't do it, but Asia can. It's like when it was somebody's birthday, he would be like, ooh, the vowel. So when he was going to preschool, that's when we noticed, because every time he calls grandma, she's like, baby, she said, I don't understand a word he's saying. I said, mommy, he's saying this and this, because I would call her mama, because and she said I don't understand a word what he's saying. But when he started going through pre-K, one of the speech therapists recognized it, and he had surgery. So no one knows about that. He had surgery, and a lot of things that he say, like he couldn't say Tootsie Roll, he would say Twissy Roll. So there's a lot of words that he couldn't pronounce. If you listen real close, he couldn't pronounce it because he had that surgery where he's able to speak.
It shows again his strength and how much of a warrior he was, in the sense of he has a speech impediment, born with it basically,
yes.
but then becomes a rapper and singer. Like that was his.
Yeah. He taught himself. I mean, even when he crawled, he started crawling early. He started walking, and before he really can do, he would dance. He be out there dancing. He always had his bottle in his mouth. He had his hand in his diaper or his pamper. He was walking around. He was a dancer. He was always dancing. But he was just he loved people. I'm telling you, he never met a stranger. He was always meeting people. He was always, Mom, this is my cousin. Boy, that ain't your cousin. Mom, that is my cousin. How's your cousin Drake? Close friends don't mean he's your cousin,
Right.
but he's like the family environment. He was very protective of Kaylin. Like, she would be trying to go on dates, and he'd be the big brother, but not the big brother, bullying. He's just a protector. He was always a protector. when he played, he loved sport. And I always kept the kids, I always try to keep them in sports off the street because I worked as a single parent. I worked, I had to provide. I had a choice. Well, I can be on welfare or I can work. So I worked.
So, like, what was his, because food is a part of this whole thing with his grandmother being a very popular soul food owner. What was his favorite kind of foods?
He loves soul food, but because you do the normal tradition dressing for Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
it got burnt out. He was more like hamburger nachos, or he go in there and cook his own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or noodles, ramen noodles at the time.
Mm-hmm.
As he got older, he really didn't have a certain favorite. He was more like into junk food,
Okay. Well,
hot
typical.
Cheetos,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
that type. He'll eat, whatever. There wasn't like a certain type of food that I was aware because he ate everything that was cooked that he really, really wanted. Now maybe his sister that can tell you more about what his favorite food is. Because as a parent, when you cook, they're gonna eat.
Right.
You
You like
know,
that go to
"Oh, well,
food you
you ain't
right,
gonna you ain't gonna eat this. Go find
right,
something else to eat."
right. You're right, right,
So
right.
as far as when he wasn't living here no more, if there was a favorite food, most time he would call me and tell me he's cooking something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Like traditional home cooking, basically.
yeah.
Fast.
He wasn't. When Andre started getting older, he had a gift that whatever he wanted to accomplish, he was gonna keep working at it until he got it done. He taught himself how to play the keyboard, taught himself how to play the drums. He taught himself how to strategize in football. Now we don't live in a country, but we got rabbits out here.
Mm-hmm.
Andre would go out there and sit and watch the rabbits. And when he played football, he called it juking. And we're like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Mom, have you ever watched a rabbit?" He said, "When you creep up on a rabbit, they'll hop." He said, and then, he mimicked with his ears. He's like, one ear turn out here,
Mm-hmm.
other ear turn out here. He said, and then when he see you come up on him, he don't go straight. He'll zigzag. So Andre used to go out there chase rabbits just to get their pattern down. So when he played football, he did the same thing.
It is so funny you bring that story up because as you were saying it, I remember, I don't know if you remembered or saw the episode where he had that counselor mentor when he was
Mm-hmm.
in high school, and that guy took him to the local park and he did the drills with Dre.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the way Dre was moving. I was amazed. I was like, he ain't moving like the average football player. Like that, it was special. It was unique, his movement. But now you kind of giving the source of, like, as you're saying, I'm like, that was like a rabbit just zigzagging. He was fast.
You can see him when he was playing in St. Louis on his
Okay.
team, how he was moving. And he was juking them dudes. And that's what he did. Like Rocky had the chickens. He would chase
Mm-hmm.
the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
Andre would watch the rabbits. He would actually go out there and chase them and get their patterns down.
I love that. I love that.
And that's just stuff that he did. There was nothing that Andre couldn't do.
What was his life like after the show? Now, I don't know how much you want to get into what was brought out in the trial that most people don't know about Tim claiming to asking you for Dre to come back in St. Louis so he could, what did he say?
Teach him how to be a man. After the show, when Andre got back, it was really hard for him because Andre had ADHD. And I told him, I said, Dre, that can help you so much on the show because in school, that's when Andre would go to school and he was so sensitive to a lot of things, the focusing part, that anything would distract him, and then he'd get off task. If he had to read in front of the class, he would do something to get kicked out of class so that he had to read because his words. Remember, because I told you that he had the pharyngeal flap, and he didn't want people making fun of him or finding his weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So he do something to get kicked out of class. So I was always getting called about Andre being in class. So I had to go up to the school and I had to tell the school, you're not going to send him to the hallway. You're going to teach my son. And we're going to adjust. You're going to adjust to him. He's not going to adjust to you. You're going to adjust your class to him so that he can learn. If instead of kicking him out, he's going to be right there beside you. He's not going to be sitting in the back of the room. He's going to be up front so that he have your attention, so nothing on the side of him would distract him. So there was different ways that I had to go to the school every day, and we had to modify the school to adjust to Dre, not Dre adjusting to them,
Mhm.
and to make him successful. So whenever Dre would have to read or whatever, and because he couldn't say certain words, he didn't want to get embarrassed, and if kids laughed at him, he'd be ready to fight. Right? Every time you talked to Andre, it was always yes, ma'am, no, sir, yes, sir. That was instilled. That was a must.
Mhm.
Kids now they don't have to do that. They don't. They're not taught to do that. Andre was very respectful. He was very respectful, and if he got mad, he wouldn't go off and cuss off on an adult, right? Either come to me or he go to another adult or he'll tell him what happened and we'll take care of it. You know, but as far as when it comes to the school, I'm very respectful. I listen to what the teachers say, and I listen to what Dre say, and I come up with the conclusion. If Dre is wrong, Dre is wrong. If Dre is right, I would never the teacher down in front of my son. I would tell him go back to class, and then me, the teacher, and the principal, we have our own little conversation.
Mhm.
But if Dre is wrong, he'll mend, he'll apologize, he'll make it right, and then he go to class. And then when he come home, he get it when he get home. But as far as the school, I never disrespected the school. The school never disrespected me. I had a good communication with the school because my main concern is my son and my kids getting their education, and I'm not gonna let nobody cheat them out of that, regardless.
Mhm.
So when it comes down to if your kids have challenges, make sure you go get a diagnostician at the school. And if they're not modifying their education for them to learn, then you need to file agreements with your school, hold them accountable, because the only way your child is going to be better if you step in and help them to get to that point. It's more than just dropping them off and going to school. You got to get involved with kids' education as well. You have to, because without that education, there'll be another statistic on the street not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the majority of the kids that drop out, either they have ADHD or they ADD, and they don't know it. Their parents don't know it because they never went and got diagnosed as why they have a learning disability. And that's the only reason why. But you have to care about your kids.
Mhm.
You have to. You have to get involved in the education that they're going to, other than just going to school. If if you get calls from the school, they're not showing up, or you looking at their grades, their grades is falling down, then there's a problem there. There's a problem. But again, it all comes with the parent. If the parents don't care, school ain't gonna care. He got picked on because his dad wasn't alive.
Mhm.
And Andre always got in a fight because kids are kids. They make a comment, he ready to fight. He'll fight
Mhm.
for his family. He'll fight about if they talk about his dad. Even though he know his dad, but that's just how he was. He was a protector. And he always want to make sure that if there was a bully, he was always there for the underdog. He was always there. Even when if anybody mess with Charles, you got to go through Dre. You talk
Uh,
about his sisters, you got to go through Dre. Dre is right there, and everybody here knew Dre. Dre can fight. Dre, he knew how to bob and weave. Dre knew how to do all that. Dre taught himself all this stuff, right? And he's preparing himself for when he got to this time and age, how to take care of himself. Now, he would do things to get on our nerves. He didn't hold grudges. He didn't hold like, "Oh, I'm not gonna talk to you because you did this." He'll do something to come around just so you can have a conversation with him, just to break the ice. Always doing that. But his big thing was family. He loved family. His dad was taken away from him when he was 8 months old. So he really didn't know his dad, but his
mhm.
dad knew him. And as Andre started growing up, he wanted to know his daddy's people. Which meant Robbie, Tim, and Linda, Jan, his cousins. Even at a young age, he was going down there staying with them for the summer, and he would come back home. And I didn't want him not to know his people because I loved his dad. And I loved the family.
Mhm.
That's what you do.
So you mentioned that when he was younger, that's when you were making sure that he had relationship with the Montgomery side and he was going there. Around what age did he start going to St. Louis and staying?
I want to say around about 7 or 8. Yeah, because he would fly down there and he had the company. Yeah, about 7 or 8.
Now, was Tim in prison during that time? Because Tim went to prison at, was it 14?
17.
17. Okay.
So 10 years. If Dre was 7, I don't think he was in prison yet.
Okay.
But I don't think he was living with Robbie at the time either.
Because she traveled and stuff, so he mostly stayed with relatives, Tim?
I don't know what happened
Okay.
with
Okay.
Robbie. No, I mean, as far as what he do or how he do, he was never like always around the family. You know, whenever I go down there, we would see him, but it wasn't like he was there and we entertained together. It wasn't like that. He wasn't. It was just mostly Robbie and us, or the restaurant, or Aunt Linda, or we would see them, but we wouldn't see him like all the time. Every
So it was
once,
almost like it was on the show where Tim was always so busy that he wasn't around really. He kind of
yeah,
dipped in and dipped out.
yeah. That's exactly how it was. So it wasn't like a tight, you know, relationship with all that. She was the closest to his dad that he never really knew. So a lot of the ways when he was down there, he was learning more about his dad, who his dad was.
You talked about the Montgomerys outside of, immediate Miss Robbie and Tim. We know him and Charles were really close. Do you have
Mhm.
anything on that or stories with him or how he talked about Charles?
Oh, Charles is like his other brother. They did so much together. They talked all the time. And like I told you, whenever he went down there, if Charles mentioned, "Oh, that guy over there, he's messing with me," Dre's right there. Dre's in that dude's face, and Charles be telling Dre, I got it. No, 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 no. You know, you're not gonna mess. Not this one here. Not this one here. He's just a protector. Where you see Dre, you see Charles. Where you see Charles, you see Dre. And then when Dre was going through a lot of things, Charles was really there to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Charles helped him through a lot of transitions as far as when you get in that limelight, he tell Dre, everybody's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Andre don't like that. He didn't like everybody in his business. And then Charles was like trying to tell him that comes with the territory. You know, Dre didn't like that. Dre liked being him. Him and Charles, they were like two peas in a pod. They grew up closer. They would go on vacation when Robbie would take them on vacation. It was always Andre and Charles, you know. So Charles was like Andre older little brother, and it was always them two together. So whenever Dre would go down, Charles would be the one that would play and hang out together with all the time, and he respected all his uncles and aunties. My deal is I was trying to get to know who the family was so that Dre would know who they were,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because Big Dre didn't introduce me to Robbie on the phone, but not face to face.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like me, Dre, and Robbie living in the same household or in the same town and we get to know each
Mm-hmm.
other. So I'm having to know who these people are from afar, but yet close.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
I get it. I get it. And did Dre ever talk about like why he left the show? Because the show had a few more seasons after.
His Facebook, like I told you, Dre didn't like to be controlled. He liked to be him. I mean, if it's a reality show, it's a reality show. I know they
Mm-hmm.
got filters and certain things, but if he's a young man and his Facebook page is rapping and whatever's on his Facebook page, that's his Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And because they don't want it tainted because of like a wholesome everyday life family, wholesome everyday family type of environment, and he goes to school, he make good grades. That's not reality. And Andre didn't want to fake who he was. He didn't want to fake. And they told him if he didn't change his Facebook or get another Facebook page, they weren't gonna put him on the show. So take me off the show then. And that's what happened. That and his hair. He wanted to change his hair up. They said no, because we're going into they got to go from this season to this season, make it sound like it's all like on the same timeline.
Okay.
And Andre didn't want it. He wanted to change his hair and his Facebook page. And so then he was like, Mom, they all fake anyway. I said, I know, so it's a
We really
reality
saw
show.
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
after the fact, we really learned that.
yeah, Andre never had the opportunity to have an heir. I never had I wasn't able to see a grandchild from him, a grandson from him. There was never a tray. When he took Andre, he stopped the lineage, and Andre wanted a son. You know,
Do you think some of that was on purpose, like by design?
yeah, I really do.
I've in my mind, it's crossed my mind. Then I've had people comment, and I've seen comments under videos and stuff where a lot of people have that theory as well. Like that was by design to stop the bloodline at himself so that,
Mhm.
when Miss Robbie wasn't around.
Yeah, he's a Mormon. Andre was a Montgomery. So if anything happened to Robbie, there's no lineage going on with Robbie lineage going on because he stopped it. Timmy's not a Montgomery, and his other son, he's not a Montgomery. And Andre wanted a son. He did. He loved kids. He loved kids.
And did you hear that rumor that he had a child? You might be familiar with the photo. Andre is sitting on a stoop.
Yeah, that's kid.
Who
He
is
that that's one of his friends. Her name is Sherelle. And her son was like Andre. Andre wanted to raise him as his son, so he called him Kid. And every time he would go down there, he'll get them. They go to the hotel, and they be like kids, jump around on the beds. He take them places, go to Walmart, pushing in the shopping carts, just being a kid with him. He loved kids. And every time I talk to him, I call him grandson. But Andre had no biological kids of his own.
because I think that's where rumors stem from. Because I was like, Andre didn't have kids, but then it started spreading, and I was like, well, I don't know for sure then. But I know when I saw that picture at some point later on, I was like, this is probably what was confusing people.
That's the one.
Next little boy.
Tim was never around before the Sweetie Pie show came on. So
Wow.
that was just a lie. It was always Robbie and Charles. Robbie, Charles, and Drake.
So what about, was the sentencing, I guess, when you allow Kayla to speak her mind on camera, and it came out about the whole Tim having supposedly Dre, the whole story they gave in the trial, that Tim was letting Dre drive his cars. He had him in this penthouse apartment next door to his penthouse apartment, his luxury apartment. Like, what are your thoughts on when all of that was coming out, and what's the truth?
Okay. When Dre got down there, Dre probably was staying with Tim at the time, but Tim was flying these women in, paying these hookers to come in. And they wouldn't give Tim no play. They was always trying to get with Andre. So Tim got mad, and that's why he put Dre. To me, I've never been to the place, but I want to say it's kind of like his storage room. Did he put a bed in there or a little whatever? I never seen it. When my sister went down there, she went to where Dre lived, and that's why she was so detailed on how Dre was living, because she saw how he was living. Now, if Dre wanted to go somewhere, they either had a driver or he had to find a way to go get there. It wasn't nothing like he was, Dre, you get my car. He wasn't giving Dre keys to his car. He wouldn't give Dre access to his apartment because every woman he brought in there, Tim paid for him. Dre didn't have to pay for it. And that's the only difference was they found Dre more attractive. They want to be with Dre versus Tim. And that's why Tim didn't want Dre staying with him. Jealousy on that part.
I was just gonna say, so there was jealousy as well, obviously. Well, we know this, but that's another sign of it. And wow.
Yeah, all that stuff and how it was. When he was staying with Robbie, it no problem because anywhere he wanted to go, Robbie would take him. Robbie and Dre spent a lot of time together, and that's why he loved his grandmother, because she instilled in him a lot of things that his dad had instilled in him, the singing that they sung together on the piano. He would do the world for Robbie. He would bend over backward for his grandma. That was his grandma. He loved Robbie. He loved his uncles and aunts, but that was his grandma. When he would call, talk to him, hello, grandma. He was respectful with her. He loved Robbie. He would never, ever, he wouldn't do none of the stuff that they claimed that he did to her. He loved Robbie too much. He loved her. That's why he came back to take the test, because he loved her and wanted to prove to her he didn't do it.
And when he moved there, because I didn't ask this for the timeline piece of it, when he moved there to finish high school, around what age was that, and what year of high school?
He moved down there when he was 16, because he was going into a sophomore when he went down there.
Was it as it was depicted on the show to us? Was that truly him staying with her for real, and she actually helped him get through high school and all of that? Was that part of it, of the script?
That was true.
Of the show?
Yeah, that was true. It was true. It was, I think, around Thanksgiving. I think the show had been airing for like 2 years straight. And she talks about her grandson, and people want to see who her grandson was, because they show a picture of Big Dre, but she talked about her grandson. So when we went down there for Thanksgiving, he asked me, Mama, I want to stay with my grandma. So what do you mean you want to stay with your grandma? He said, I want to live here. So I asked Robbie, she said she don't mind because, the show's going on. She want to include him in the show as part of the family and because it's a family show. I'm like, well, okay. That's your grandma. What I'm gonna jet for? She gonna take care of you. She gonna make sure you go to school. But I told her, I said, you're gonna get a lot of calls from the school because I would get phone calls from the school, and whenever she would call me, I would tell her, yeah, the school is calling because Andre have what he doing in class. He's either acting up because it goes back to him having ADHD. And it wasn't because he came from a poor family or we didn't have this or give him a better life. It wasn't that.
Please replay. Let me not. Please say that piece of it because that is literally the narrative that's been out there, and that's what I thought all the time too. Like, oh, his mama down on her luck, and he was about to be, arrested and in jail had Miss Robbie not saved him. So clear this up, please.
No, Andre didn't come from a family where were poor. It wasn't like Andre didn't have home training. Andre went down there only to the fact because Robbie was doing a Sweetie Pie show, and she was explaining to everybody she had a grandson, and she wanted the world to meet who her grandson was that she was talking about. Andre had a stable home. He had a single mom who worked hard, and I worked for the prison. So it wasn't like he was a juvenile, he was going to be arrested, or he was always fighting every day. He fought. Only time he would fight if the kids was talking about him, or if he would get in a conflict with an adult. Adults was intimidated by Dre as well. But it was never ever the reason why Dre went to go stay with grandmother because I couldn't take care of my kids. My kids was well taken care of.
Perfect.
So
I love that. I'm so glad. And that just randomly through you talking is like, wait a minute, that's a good point that has never been made. That narrative was put out there as a part of the storyline of the show. We don't know no better. That's
right,
for whatever, it's been what, 10, 12 years. That's what we thought. And not
right.
until I've slowly gotten to know y'all outside of that, I'm like, it ain't matching up from what.
They just had to throw it in there the reason why he came to stay with her. And that's the only reason why, because
Couldn't say, oh, just for the show, for ratings.
yeah, the Sweetie Pie show came out, and you want to show that she given this whole this luxury life that he never had an opportunity to go, and that's the only reason what it was. People here in Lubbock, they know me, they know I don't play by my kids, they know I don't play by my kids' education. I don't know, Dre just didn't like fake. He couldn't get into the reality. He like, Mom, all them people fake. I said, what about that mentor? He was only there because grandma was paying him. So there was, I said, Dre, it's for the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, I don't want to be on that show. So
He was
yeah,
too real for the show.
yeah, he was too real for it.
Reality show. That's what it was.
It's all fake. I'm like, Dre, that's what it is. Whenever Dre went out of town, you very seldom see him with a suitcase. Either go with the clothes on his back, or if he did leave with it'd be like a duffel bag, and he'd come back without it. Dre, where's your stuff at? I don't know. He didn't care about materialistic stuff. He just didn't. Now something that he like really, really bought or he really, really liked, he liked it. But if somebody else liked it more than he did, he just give it to him. He just give it to him. You never see him like suitcase. Even with his jewelry break or he lose it, he's gonna get another. Nothing materialistic kept him from not being grounded, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I got that fatal call from her about Dre, and I didn't want to answer the phone. I just didn't want to answer the phone. And then she hung up and she called right back. And then that's when she was like, well, the detectives is here. And my heart is already slowing down, and to the point where they want her to go down to the morgue to identify that was him. That was it. It was like, it was so surreal. Everything just rolling around. I'm just like, not my son. Not my son. Not my son. So then I called uh, my sister, my kids, and I told them, I said, y'all just pray that somebody stole Andre's ID. that it's not him, but it's somebody else. And we prayed, and we was calling his phone, and he never answered. And then she called back, just waiting, knowing that God, if it's your will, that your will be done, Called back to say, yeah, that was him. And they said I passed out. I fainted. I don't know. I don't remember. But it's just like, this is a dream, not my son. So I'm keep calling his phone, and after that, that's when you get the phone call from the detectives and everybody else want to know, they got to get into his phone, the last person he talked to. So all that come into play. And in my mind, it's like you're swimming. Who, why, what, where? And then his words came back. Mom, if anything ever happened to me, Lord and Uncle Tim. So when the first question they asked me, it's exactly what I told them.
From my remembrance, I think it was your persistence that led to when they got that funding for that, what was it, Operation Legend that they put together? Was that the name of it? It was a cold case group of law enforcement agencies that came together to solve crimes in places like St. Louis and some other places, I think. And Andre's case being on their mind because you were so adamant about it, it made them pick him as one of the cold cases. Was that anything you heard?
Well, only thing I knew is they had been working on this before it came out. Legend, it was my understanding, was a little boy that got caught up in a drive-by shooting, and then it got there was so much killing going on that they kept having all these cold cases that they formed this team together. Well, my A team was already working on this beforehand, and it just, I guess, because of where it came from, it just kind of like came together at the same time at the right place. God put it the way it's supposed to be put to blow up. Mm-hmm. So waiting and being persistent. A lot of time when you're waiting and you don't get no results, God's working it out. But these people came from all parts of all parts of the states come together. So you had one in Chicago, you had one over here, one over there. They wasn't like already here. Mm-hmm. They came in and God gathered them together to the point where they happened to be work on Dre's case, the Sweetie Pie murder for hire case.
Would you saying his calling? I know Kayla mentioned in that press conference that he said something to the effect, I'm going to take one for the angels or go out like the angel. You feel like he had an inkling?
Andre knew. Andre, he didn't know when, but he knew. So whenever they was accusing him of robbing his grandmother from being in St. Louis, he wasn't living with Robbie at the time. He came back and he said, Mom, he said, if anything ever happened to me, just know that Tim did it. What are you talking about? He said, well, just know Tim don't never do his own dirty work. And I'm like, okay, it's your family. So I knew there was like a nephew, uncle love relationship, but I never knew it would go to this extent. Never in a million years, never. So when Dre said, I'm like, okay. Wow. And they was like, question why? Well, that's $1 million question. Why?
Right.
Why would he? Why would anybody want to take another life? Especially your own blood, your only nephew from your only brother that holds the legacy to the Montgomery. Mm-hmm. Why? And Robbie went off on him and he was so mad he threw his phone. And they told him, they said, you ain't got nothing to prove. He said, no. He said, I'm going to go. I'm going to be one of God's soldiers.
Yes.
That's what he said. And he always said, Mom, I'm going to go out there and do my music thing. He said, I'm going to make y'all famous. He said, I'm going to take care of my family. Well, people know us. Mm-hmm. They know him. Because of him, they know us. Mm-hmm. And because of how the situation came around. And Andre said those words, even when he was trying to leave, and I told him, I said, son, don't go. Because I had a dream of his death. And I told him about it. And he's like, for real, Mom? I said, yeah, Dre. I said, I want you to go. He said, Mama, he said, I know, but I gotta go. So he knew. I mean, I don't think he knew this was going to happen, but he knew it was something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, even my sisters, they're very spiritual. They was telling Dre, don't go. Dre, don't go back. He's like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Because one thing I know for Dre, he had to go clear his name with his grandmother. Because he loved Robbie. He That was his second mom. You know, she taught him the money part. And then before he left in Lubbock, I didn't find out till afterwards that he went around to like the librarian, people that he knew. He told me he's going to St. Louis. And he said, be back. Is he gonna come back? Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back. And I said, well, has he ever, whenever he left to go St. Louis, have he ever told y'all that, goodbye? They said no. So he had an idea.
Mm-hmm.
He had an idea. Even with Charles, him and Charles had planned to go to California when he was out there and they want to live together and whatever. I mean, he had plans in place, but I really felt like he knew something.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know what, but something was going to happen.
And in the immediate aftermath, like when you first got that call about what happened to Dre while in St. Louis, because of all of the pre-conversations, what was your first thought about what happened? Did you feel like, I know who did, I know what happened? Or were you shocked completely? Like,
I wasn't shocked.
have you ever heard the why?
No,
I mean,
and
we know about the money, we know the
yeah,
insurance, but
yeah.
what's the real why?
We'll probably ever never know. I can come up with all kinds of assumptions. I can always come up with all kinds of scenarios. In the back of my mind, I really know, but I really don't want to say. Even the plans that he had for my son, it backfired on him. Because the truth is going to always prevail.
Mm-hmm.
Going to always. And it made me, it frustrated me that they tainted his name all this time.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly why we're here, because I felt the same way. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is crazy. And
yeah,
because they're bigger, they're public figures, their narrative got out there. And you guys couldn't say a lot of things, but you're also not big public figures. So the few things y'all did say didn't necessarily reach the masses. So it's like this narrative is out there about Dre from their side, basically.
exactly. And then when it started coming down, then they're the one that's all and more.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was out there. How can he do that to his grandmother? She did this for him and his uncle. And and even when he was alive, he was walking around and they was like, he was getting all this hate thing because he did this to his grandmother who was there for him, who did all this. And all along, he was used as a plot,
Mm-hmm.
as a ploy, a distraction
Mm-hmm.
from what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
I can say he lived his life. Well, we always worked every day, pay the bills, we stressed, we worked. Andre's stress wasn't like, I would say, like everybody else stress.
Mm-hmm.
He was still young. He lived day to day. He didn't worry about the future, because he lived the moment. And whatever his assignment was, he completed his assignment while he was here.
Mm-hmm.
He touched a lot of lives without even actually trying to touch their lives, if that makes sense.
No, totally, because I'm an example of that. He touched
You
my
know,
life and he didn't know me.
you know, and like you said, the short time he was on TV, I didn't worry about if his head was going to get big or if he was going to, have bodyguards and all this stuff. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
Dre. Dre was
Mm-hmm.
down to earth. That's just the person he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 6 kids. I love all my kids.
Mm-hmm.
All my kids, they have their own special talent. And it's not that I don't recognize them or I don't acknowledge them. I do. They're here with me on earth. But Andre's not here. I'm I'm not gonna never ever gonna forget him. And I don't think nobody ever would. So I don't want nobody to think that I'm focusing only on Dre because of everything that surrounded him.
Mm-hmm.
But Dre had a purpose and he fulfilled his purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will be like, well, my child is, and why my child? And my deal is, why not your child? If Dre purpose was to fulfill and go home. then he did his job.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones still waiting. We're the ones still going through. We're still the one that has to be stressed out. He's not stressed no more. You know, when Dre was born, I gave him back to the Lord. I dedicated him back. I dedicated all my kids back to him. So the time that he was here to learn, to teach us what we needed to know. But when the father called him home, he has to go home. You know, it's nothing that we done. We got to do our job. If we don't complete our job and we go before it's time, then that falls on us. So it is sad because we're selfish.
Mm-hmm.
We always want them to be here, just like our mother and our father. We don't never want them to go nowhere. But when they go, we have to remember what they taught us and
Mm-hmm.
pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if we don't, then we're not doing our job. And Andre, he left a footprint in our lives. Even like even when we was going through the funeral and everything, and they came down and Tim Down came down later on with his bodyguards and all this other stuff. The time I was going through, it was like a blur to me. I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of people. I don't remember a lot of things because I was still in this unreal setting that this is actually happening. I was in this oh hi, and they was telling me different things. I don't remember. I don't remember. This wasn't like it was a celebration or a memory for me to remember. This was like I guess like my self mechanism kind of like blocked a lot of emotion and feelings
Mm-hmm.
because it's traumatic. It's so hard. You know, you're a child. And then when you lose a child that you bore, that you raised, you know, my heart physically ripped. It's a
Mm-hmm.
rip. It was a rip in my heart. You can't I tell me you can't massage it, you can't cup it, you can't there's nothing you have to go through it. Because I've been unforgave them.
Mm-hmm.
I have to forgive them. I even have to forgive Tim. I have to forgive not for because, but because for me. So I can go forward.
For your peace of mind and your sanity.
That's it. But something did happen. So since Dre's been gone, I've never dreamt of my son. It never came to me. I think about him, I will ponder about him, I will pray, and it never came to me. The other night, I had a dream of Dre.
Wow.
You know, using your dreams, you'll see that person from afar, but you never able to tell them what you want to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wake up, you're like, oh, I see him. I didn't even, whatever. Well, in his dream, I seen Andre. We talked. He looked at me. I looked at him. He told me, I love you. And I was able to tell him, I love you too, son. And we smiled and we waved. It was just right there. I seen his face. I seen his, he was happy. 7 years. I see my son. And I woke up. I had the best morning, best day. And even my dream, I was crying because I was like, I seen him. And when I woke up, I had tears. So they said, when you miss somebody and you dream of them, the closest to them you can get is in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a reality because when I seen him, I was crying in my dream. I woke up, I had tears in my eyes. And I've never had a dream of him since. Before that.
Yeah. And I find that when you were speaking about it in my head, I was like, it's interesting that it would be literally almost a year, a little over a year after the conviction, versus you were almost in your mind, if you think it through, you'd be like, oh, he'll come to her right after the sentencing. But it's like you still had some grieving to do even after that. There was some closure that was needed after that, the sentencing and all of that. And it's like literally almost just a year later, you get that level of him coming and giving you closure to what degree you could get it from that. And speaking of that, how did you feel when Tim was finally arrested in what, August of 2020? I think it was August 24th, 2020. I almost know some of these dates in the like in my head. That show you how invested I was from literally from the day he got arrested. I was like, what?
Yeah, everybody was surprised, but I wasn't surprised, right? Because I knew Dre wouldn't tell me those words for just be telling me that. There was a reason behind it. And especially when he was taken away, I really held on to those. Those was his words, as they say, his last words. So when it happened, I was glad, not because that I knew that it was coming out, that all this is, everything's been revealed, that I've been knowing or we've been knowing, but we couldn't say nothing. That was the joy. Finally, everybody can see that who was the mastermind behind all of this, right? So I was happy because I got two phone calls. The first phone call was I was at work